So, try to. Okay, so that's the reason why I said that this was talking about Abba because the story, the way we understand it, the Nasira really has mostly to do with Ima. That's the story that we've been hearing up to this point. Is that the Ima leaves Zeranpin, comes onto the top of the head of Zeranpin, and enters the Nukva, and it builds up the Nukva. He didn't mention any of that at all. So you said, well, where is he coming from? And that's the reason why I said he's really actually talking from the perspective of Abba. So that Abba's the one that breaks up the hay into a vav and a hay. And Abba is the one that goes up to the Roma Ma'alis and brings back the Shefa, which ultimately is going to bring it to Zeranpin. And there is going to already be waiting for him the Nukva, because she was already went through a Nasira because she had no relationship with the back of Zeranpin anymore. That's the way he told that story. And that's the reason why I said I think it's really all about Abba. If you look over here on, let's see, where did I say that I was going to start this? 1 second. So I'm in the wrong place. Okay, that's that one. So he says, let's look at page Shin Yud Zion and just read across the top. He says, Isyached Yud B'Chudue. So he said that the Yud leaves, that's the one where it says it leaves by itself. That's Chochmah, or Abba. The Basar came solid B'Dargui La'ela, and it goes up and up and up. Then the next page it says, Ischashka Nukva, and then when it leaves, that the Nukva then becomes dark. And then Abba comes back and he shines into Ima. That's the way I understand the story. That's the reason why I said that it looks like it's a completely different version, but it's really not. It's just really describing, I think, what's going on with Abba. That's my position. Here's Shin Kaf Aleph. That's where we're at now, right now. He says, O Miftacha, O Mispatcha Basaroi. He said, "Va'az niftechas ima b'chamishim shari bina shalo." So now Abba has come back. That's where I hear this story, and now he's being mashpia to Ima, who is now face to face with Zeranpin. That's the way that I understood it in sequence up to this point. So then she opens up with 50 gates. So he says, "Shuhu sod." Latest mochem achadashim the ima that tzarich Zeranpin, which is the concept of bringing out new mochim into ima. They say that all this is coming from the traveling of Abba. Abba went up to the Roma Ma'alos, brought back Shefa. Now he's giving it to Ima. She opens up the 50 gates. Ve'inyan the mishum shari bina chabechu besod chasad v'gevurus the das. How'd you get to 50? He says. So how did they come out to be 50? He comes back. He's now shining chasadim gevuros. Shehem sod osius hamilui vav dawud. So now he split the hay into a vav and a dawud. He said, and now you have two sets of chasadim. Well, you have two sets, chasadim and gevuros. Chamesh chasadim. V'chamesh gevuros ha'olim yachad k'mis persara. Now you got 10. The Rebbe Shchu communion Oz Yud Shel Abba, which is 10, of course, corresponds to the Yud in Abba. V'chein ku communion Oz his Samilui. So it's also that, the Vav and the Daled, Shehem Chasadim Begevuros. He said, V'ata nachsan. So now this is the process that's going on. You have this Yud. Yud is a 10. And then its Milui is a 10. So he says, "Va'ata nechlalim asara chasadim v'gevuros elu be'ima." So now these chasadim and gevuros are becoming a part of Ima. So Ima develops her own. She has this mochin that came back from Abba, I guess, and this causes her to develop her own mochin. Shehu sod os hey rishonu shel shem avaya, and it develops this bina. Bina is now going to be a letter. It's going to be the letter hey by itself. Then you can multiply Mispar Asara Shal Chasada V'Gevuros Mispar Chamisha Shal Ima. Now there's going to be 5 that's going to come from Ima. Now where does 5 come from? V'anten Nechlala Masara Chasada Gevuros Ela Be'ima Shehi Sod Os Hey. So now we're going to say the Hey goes with the 10. V'olachem yachad the mizbech mishim, and then when you add them up, they all come to the number of 50. So he says Shehem so chamishim shari bina. There you go with your 50 gates of bina. V'amar od, and he says further, ki la'ach sheniftaku shari bina b'sod leda. So now she has those. She has all of the chasadim in the gevuros, and she's given the zer anpin, and therefore she comes to this question, this situation. She opens up the shari bina in the concept of giving birth. Then comes along va'oz v'nizgalach hadas. Then at this point, das is revealed. Shel zer anpin. That is the das of zer anpin, which has within inside of it the yesod of ima. Hanikra mafteach. It's called a key. Why? Shekolu sheish kitzvah. Excuse me. It's a key with let's say 6 notches on it, something like that, 6 corners. As we know, the das spreads into the penimius of zer anpin. Sheyesh bo shisha kitzvahs, which has 6 different corners or 6 different spots, particular places. V'nikra mafteach is, why is it called the key? Ki hadas poseach as rechem ima b'shas leidas emochin. It is the das that has the ability to be able to open up the womb of ima. So besod pete rechem. So this is the concept of the firstborn, I guess, of the opening of the womb. So what happens here is that those 50 gates, or those concept of the 50 gates, as Pesach Yisod Ima. So now what happens is that where the going out from, in other words, if she's going to give birth, it's going to have to go through her Yisod. Zer Anpin is now covering over the opening of that Yisod of Ima, Sheniftach B'sod Chabishim Shari Bina Kana, which is now closed up. Excuse me, that opens up these 50 gates. You need a key. The key really sounds more like a stopper to me. So what's going on here? He says ki hamochin de ima. He says the mochin of ima. Hamochin de ima sheyesh bechem chasadim megavuras de das, that has within them chasadim megavuras de das. B'sod chamishim shari bina. So let's look at it now. That's ima. That's now her yesod, and let's see what she's doing. Nechnasim b'sod zer anpin dechlalibo. They go into now that whole enters into zer anpin. Now, this interesting transformation. So, just the first thing is that you're creating these 50 gates, and then you have this key that sort of like plugs up the idea that place. Then comes out zer anpin is actually the niknasim b'soch zer anpin. Then zer anpin comes out. Then it sounds like comes out of the womb of ima. Then the lower part of Eder, her nai, goes back into zer anpin. V'nimsha says zer anpin soisim mechasech b'sochel. So there we see that zer anpin therefore is now covering over, because now she's inside of him, covered over inside of himself. Chacham mishim shari bina. They're now inside of zer anpin. Makabel es chasad das, and now he's receiving the chasad das. V'hine gam hanukva mekabelas melamala as hagavuras das. But now, let's see that we lost them. Okay. Wait a second. Okay, we're back. So I think we say let's go towards the bottom of the right column. He says v'hine gam anukva mikabelas milamala as hagavuras das. Now the situation is that zer anpin is now where he was inside of the of ima. That's why I'm saying it's an interesting idea. He was inside of ima, let's say, so to speak, and now ima is inside of him. So she comes inside of him. That's just why I'm just tracing that thought. So he says now the nukva, that is, the nukva is going to get some light here too. So she receives the gevuros the das. V'ata nisaknim zer anpin the zivug. Now zer anpin is ready for yichud. Ki zer anpin mekabel chasadim the yos muchen the zivug, because he got already the chasadim as he is ready for zivug. So of a nukva mekabelas hagavuras kedei l'sakein sarasu v'nikve rosho, and the different openings of her head could go neranayim kaduma. Like for example, let's say her eyes. Let me just read this again. He says that nukva mekabelas hagavuros, she gets the gavuros. What do we get out of her getting the gavuros? And he says the gavuros come kedei l'sakein sarasa, in order to build her form. The nikve rosha, and then he adds also the openings of her head. Now that doesn't seem like it's part of this sequence. He wants to point this out, and also the eyes, her eyes, and etc. Her 7 organs there in the head. Kagon anayim v'kadoim, the eyes, the ears, the nose, and the mouth. B'pasa v'yikrach elokim la'or yom v'lechosha kol Lila. In the darkness he called now by the name Lila. So let me just see Lila. Number 75. Okay, there's the Hainu, that is to say, Zer Anpin Hanikra, or that Zer Anpin, who is called light. Let's try to get this figured out. Canal Basif Akoidim, he says, we called it there. Kabbalah Chasada Benikroim Yom. They're going to receive the Chasada, that is the Zer Anpin, as we know. It's built out of Chasadim, Ayedecha Be'ima. Those Chasadim come from where? They come from Ima, Hanikras Alokim, who's called by the name Alokim. Then he said, "V'hanikras choshech." Then the nukva, which we said she went dark because Abba left. Then there was no light. I don't know. That's why she became dark, or she's dark because there was no light coming over there from Zer Anpin. Now she's independent. The kabel as a gavuras and ikraim lila. So now she gets the gavuras, which are called nighttime. So now Zer Anpin is primed and ready. So when that happens, and Zer Anpin has all of these mochin, they're really coming in from Abba, from the Abbadik side, but he also, inside of him, is the mochin that are coming from Ima. He says, she now comes independent of Zer Anpin, panim b'panim, and she's face to face with him. And this allows for the yichud, v'achid the sata, v'az nis yachid Zer Anpin v'nukva, in the ultimate yichud, b'yichud v'yisodos lamanta. So the yisodos now come together. V'zer Anpin noisin the chasada v'secha v'mayim dechurim. So now the chasadim, let's just hear this, are coming. That is the yichud that comes as a result of Yisod. The Yisod nosen the chasada b'sod mayim nayim dechuru. So they're coming from the top to the bottom into the nukva. But at the same time that's going on, v'hanuk nosenis gavuros b'sod mayim nukvim. But she's giving gavuros, and that is, let's say, light or energy that's going the opposite direction. It's going from the bottom to the top. So you have the top to the bottom meeting the bottom to the top. So then what yacha? Then they sweeten each other. When I'm talking about gavuras, but chasad and the gavuras are sweetened with this other. Oh, not only that, lahai. Kinimster Zer Anpin nisyache lebalo lamata, that he makes a yichud up above and down below. What does that mean? Ki lamala misyache Zer Anpin be'ima, because up above Zer Anpin makes a yichud with ima. This is like the old story of the Vav, which touches ima and also malchus. So misyache Zer Anpin be'ima. So now he says there's a yichud because ima is now inside of Zer Anpin. Besod kinesis yisod ima berosh Zer Anpin, because her yisod came into his head, and now it's becoming a part of Zer Anpin. The says Hamochin that gives him that now as she comes into him, what's her purpose? Is to spread the Chabad throughout the goof of Zer Anpin. So he said, V'lamata, now the yichud that takes that place down below, Misyachad Zer Anpin benukva besod the yichud ka'amor, so that makes a yichud with the nukva. So this is the secret. As the pasuk continues, he says, the pasuk, I guess, is Vehi Erev Vehi Voker Yom Echad. He says that the two of them go together. We see this constantly, the concept to become one. Koloma Erev as Koloma. Let's take this word Erev, the Haida Techidus Alayla, that is the beginning of nighttime. Who you sow the nukva. Now, why did he say that? Just a question. He says Koloma Erev. Nighttime. Okay, I have no problem with the Erev being dark. Oh, the Haino Techilas Alayla, but he wants to say this talking about the very beginning of the night. Who Yisod the Nukva. He says the beginning of the night is where you find the Yisod of the Nukva, Pesach v'Techilas Hamalchus Hanikras Laila, and it's the beginning of Malchus. So going over the words again, he says the concept of Erev, which we understand is the beginning of darkness, that beginning refers to the beginning of what's going to come in deeper and deeper darkness, which is really refers to the Nukva. So he said, Yisod the Nukva, Shuhu Pesach v'Techilas and Malchus, which is the opening, the beginning of Malchus, which is the Nikras Laila. So this is the opening of Malchus. But the I think to me is that he pointed out that this is also called the Yisod. Whereas normally you're thinking the Yisod, I'm thinking that the Yisod is pouring out light. But over here, we say, as he said, the low note of the Lukva is pouring out, or not pouring out, it's sinking into darkness. Then he says, Uboka, the word morning, Dahaino Techilas Yom, let's talk about that. That's the Yisod of Ima, Shetechilas is Pashtusa, who Bechesed the Zer Anpin, because where she begins to spread is at the Zer Anpin, Hanikra Boker, and Zer Anpin, he says it's Boker, right, because Zer Anpin is light. So now you have these two Yisodos meeting. The one that pours out light, and now the one that sinks into darkness. They're meeting. They're coming together. This is Zachav and Nog. So now you have these two Yisodos. The one from Ima, that's pouring into Zer Anpin, and then you have the one from Zer Anpin, which is pouring into the Nukva. Let's say he says V'shnei Yisodus Elo the Nukva v'Ima. So Nukva the Eva Nikroim Erev v'Voken. They're calling by these two different names. And Misyachlim Ayedech Zer Anpin. The Zer Anpin is the one that puts these two forces together. Besod Yom Echad, and then it makes day and night, which is our night and day, which is one day. Kolomer Shenaaser Echad. They become one. Zer Anpin is Zer Anpin that actually does the uniting, Hanikra Yom, which is called by the name day. So he says a Messiah, Vailaman de Galid Pischa, woe to the person who reveals that opening. And he says, Al Yedech Rovenoisev, and how does he do that? God forbid. He does it because of his sins. The Galos says Pesach Yisod Ima, to reveal the openings of the Yisod of Ima. The Hailo, to which I guess it brings out light. The Hailo Shagoram Istalkos Ima Min Zer Anpin. He says that actually what happens then is that source of light leaves Zer Anpin. V'nimsa de Zer Anpin Eine Mechasech Pesach Yisod Ima. So he used to be covering over. She came into him, so therefore he was covering over. She's in the house, so to speak. And so he says, Anpin Bechasach Pesach Yisod Ima. He used to cover it over, but he's not doing it anymore. Sheniftach Besod Chamishim Shari Bina, and that Yisod of Ima could open up and become a tremendous source of light with the 50 Sharim. He said, Ve'enim Mekabel Chasad Das, and then the Chasad Das will come in, a Yod Yisod Ima, they come out of the Yisod of Ima. V'zecho Bechinas Gilui Ervas Ima. That's that concept. Okay, now we're going to go over to the GRA on the second chapter, if I can find it. Ooh, okay. Okay. So now we're on page Shin Lamed Hey. Let me get a drink here. Okay. So just reading across the bottom, and it says, it starts talking about the Dikna Meramenusa, the beard of faith. And he's going to give me a definition of Amunah here. And I didn't quite follow it. So why that would be called Amunah? Because to me, Amunah is like something hidden. So, but he says the opposite. He says, Dikna Meramenusa, the beard of faith. Hadikna de Erich Anpin Nikra Amunah. The beard itself is called faith. The Fi Shuhu Techilas Gilui or Ein Sof. Because why is it called faith? Because this is the very beginning of where the light of the Ein Sof is revealed. So, okay, the Inyan is like this. So he says, Shaklalos, one second. So he says, "Sheklalus Aratzilus Nikra Amuna." So you want to talk about Amuna? First, he said that Amuna is the beginning of the revelation, or the revealing of the Ein Sof. So he says the Indian is Sheklalus Aratzilus Nikra Amuna. Just in general, Atzilus is called Amuna. Well, what is Amuna? Then we say, it's like Erich Anpin. Atzilus hu gilui or Ein Sof, because that's what Atzilus is like. It's like a way to be able to reveal the light, in my opinion, which is nothing. So how you have to have some physicality in order to make it revealed, I guess. So different. It's interesting in what he means by revealed to me. This is like the face of the Jews. Because the Amuna, and he's saying that Amuna means the Gilui of the Or of the Ein Sof. He said Mesigim as Or Ein Sof. That's how they reach the Ein Sof. That Yisrael Sha'ayidera Amuna is the vehicle, he's saying, that allows us to reach the light of the Ein Sof. Umo came called Gilui Habasagas Bachasaga. Ba'or Ein Sof. So anytime there's any revelation of this light, or any kind of reaching of the light, or appreciation of the light, Nikra Amuna, all of that looking for the Lord, trying to attach yourself to the original light, the light of the Ein Sof, because I guess he means it's like a prism. And so like the light shines through what's the word, Atzilus. And Atzilus, this area is called Amuna. And since the light is shining, it's not the original light, but it's a light that is reachable. That's what he seems to be saying. And as a result of that, that ability to be able to see or to attach yourself or in some way to this light is called Amuna. And became Shachadidikta to Erich Anpin, who Rashis Agilu Ishel or Ein Sof. So since the dikna of Erich Anpin is the first place where you really see the revealing of the light of the Ein Sof, B'Atzilus, Ki Saras Adikna, Haim Sinur, is because we understand the functioning of the beard. It's like a bunch of channels, dakim, which are very narrow. Asher bechem mislabesh v'nisgala ha'or ha'elyon. This is, inside of this is the light of the Ein Sof. Lakach nikra ha'dikna de Erich Anpin. So therefore the beard of Erich Anpin, the Erich Anpin, b'shem Amuna. It's called by the name Amuna. Okay, it's because this is the first place where the light is channeled in such a way that it actually could be revealed. So that's the concept of Amuna. It's not what I thought, so I have to think about it a little bit more. For Omar, so let's go on. Od dikna lo idkar. So not only that, but the dikna is not mentioned anywhere. Ki chazah zakan. He said that we talk about in the Pesukim, Beferish. The Hagam ki shar evari Erich Anpin gam kain enum nizkarim b'pasuk. So it's what we see over here that the other attributes, he said ki shar evari Erich Anpin gam kain enum, they're also not really revealed in any pasukim. Parts of Erich Anpin b'Torah, because there's no mention of the parts of Erich Anpin in the Torah. So he says ak b'kol zois, but even so, he says, "Hadikna einoch kashar havarim." The beard is just not like everything else. So he says, not only is the beard not mentioned, but nothing else about Erich Anpin is really mentioned. He's the who, as I recall. He says, "Eino kashar havarim." Shahare Shlomo Hamamelech Hizger b'Shir Shirim. He went through them. He shahar shari varikumas Zer Anpin. He talked about the limbs of Zer Anpin. Could go Rosha Ketzim Paz, so he says a head. It's golden. The Gedumba B'Kol Zois and things like that. Lo Hiskir B'Dikna, but he doesn't mention the beard at all. Derek Anpin. Excuse me, I got that wrong. Lo Hiskir Adikna de Zer Anpin, but he might mention different attributes, but he doesn't mention the beard even in Zer Anpin. V'tam Davarhu. So what's the reason why? Begin dehi yekirusa the kula, because it's the most precious part. The vishal dikna hu hayakor. Yeah, it's the preciousness of and its glory. Because shachar v'arechagum. In other words, it's the most glorious place of the whole column of Erich Anpin or Zer Anpin. Va'inyan hu ki tika shechazakan hu kavod the adam. That's actually a glory for a man. Commotion we have this pasuk, v'hadras pnei zakan. As I think it meant zaken. So it says the glory of the face of the old man. V'kol shekain lamala ve'Erich Anpin, and certainly when we're talking about Erich Anpin, huba b'chinas kavod ke'inyan shen'emba v'neged v'neged zakenam kavod. So corresponding in the opposite of his beard is glory. So I guess it means that it attached to it in some way. Va'inyan the kavod hu kanhu. So the concept of the kavod is here. Kikishemizgalach addicted to Erich Anpin, as the beard of Erich Anpin is revealed, Azai Mizgala Rachmav. Then the mercy of Erich Anpin is revealed. The Nikbim Adinim, and all the dinim are beaten down or humbled. Varishayim Kolim, and the Rishayim they die. Ushmo Mizgala Olam, and as this happens, the one is falling and the other one is becoming greater and greater in the world. The Godol who ma'alas adikna, and since the qualities of the dikna are on such a high level, he's a lakach lo nizkar adikna b'pasuk. So therefore, the beard in the pasuk is not mentioned, because apparently it's beyond that. Ki kol mashu elyon v'yakar. So all that upper specialness of that the glory of the beard, hu ne'elam mechusa. It's always like that. It's covered over. So he's still talking about the beard of Erich Anpin, and he goes through it pretty quickly. He says ma'udnim nafka. Yitzias techatachaschalos adikna hu mamakum b'chasnaim. It's really at the place of the ears. The Erich Anpin, it was as we understand, Koloma shal sa'aros shal tikun narishon, the shlosha asa tikun nidikna. So the hairs of the first tikun, he said maskilin, that says take it at aznaim. So immediately by the ears, that's where it starts. Sachranachal de busita. What is sachranachal de busita? So he said va'achar kach yored, and then afterwards, 1 second, something's wrong here. Okay, va'achar kach yored. Then after that, it goes down. Adikna savid kol upon him. It goes down around the whole face. There we go. All upon him. Of asaras arba b'tikunim, and then the hairs of 4 of the tikunim. Shnei shlishi excuse me. Tikuns number 2, 3, 4, and 5. He said Yordim v'sovavim as the pad. They go down and they surround the mouth in different kinds of ways. The Erich Anpin. Salig, then they go up. V'achakach hoizer adikna. So we've gone through number 5. He says the goes to the alos. It starts going back up. Behind the shesaras adikna olim min peh el makom tikun ashishi. So it goes from the mouth to the place of the 6th tikun. Goes up from that area and goes upwards. He said, these are the hairs on the broad place of the cheeks. Lamala memana, so then up above that, hu tikun shvi, which is the 7th tikun. Shuhu b'makom haponoi, which is the empty space. Misar, it's a place that has no hairs. It's the what does he call it? He calls it the apples. I think the tepuchi. V'nachas chut rivara. Then, from that position, then a white thread comes out. So you got to number 7, you're on the face. Now you're going to number 8. V'achar kach yordim sa'aras adigna mirocha v'lechaim. So the hairs of the beard go down across the width, the breadth of the beard. V'nimshachim l'malta b'bechinas chut levan. So they spread downwards, this kuchut, and it goes around the beard. That's why I understood it. It goes downward anyway as a concept of a white thread. And these threads, now he said more than one, he says of the 2 mazlos. Behind the mazel rishon shuhu tikun shmini, that's the first mazel. Nimshach v'yored mata adachaza, it continues going down along the beard, I guess on the outside of the beard, until it reaches the areas of the chest, the Erich Anpin, and that's where it stops. A mazel l'sheni, then there's another mazel. Shuhu tikun shlosha also, which is the 13th tikun. Nimshach v'yored mata ad Tibur de Erich Anpin, it goes further down. It follows the beard all the way down to the Tibur of Erich Anpin. Ubnei Shnei Maslos Elu, and in between these two Maslos, Nechlalim Shar HaTikunim, Dahaina Rabbamin Tikun Shmini, so from number Tikun number 8, Tikun Shlosh Asar until 13, so whatever's in between, Vihine, so those all comes out, they're incorporated in those two that surround. V'hinechab ad kan is boyer makam saras atikuni dikna ubeklal. So now you see that we're talking about the tikuni of the beard in general. But slicer misparash, and it spreads into 13 different paths. But pratos, if you look at it in detail, mispashet mis chalek, it spreads and it divided up adinim l'shlosha aser tikuni b'shlosha aser makom b'shonim. So he says, now he let me see something he says. So he says, misfarish and mischalek adikta l'shlosh aser tikunim b'shlosh aser makom b'shonim. So he puts it, they go into 13 different places. Like a Moshe Yisbar l'chalon, we say they're called tikun b'bekomo, that we actually have spent some time going through the location of these tikunim. So let's go on though. The Gra wants to go on, but Yikira the Yusa Haki Ksiv. But Dikna Chazais, now talking about the beard of Erich Anpin, Shanikra Yakir the Yerikusa, it's the glory of glories. And Amber Pasuk, this is where this Pasuk in Yirmiyah. So I had to try to remember this Pasuk. He says, Lo Overba, he didn't pass into her. Ish velo Yashiv Adam Sham. No man passed into her. Velo ish is the word ish. Okay. Velo Yashiv Adam. Then he switches to the word Adam Sham. You now can find any man there. Now, what's the meaning of this pasuk? That's what the Gra is going to tell us. What Rebbe Shimon meant over here. Pirish. So he says like this: So the Zer Anpin. It's Yisod the Zer Anpin. Nikra ish. So now we're getting some more substitute words. So he said, I'm not sure that I could figure an analogy for this. So he says, Yisod the Zer Anpin Nikra ish. It's called by this word ish. Okay, and so he said, V'omar ki at b'shan she'odecha Yisod l'mala el hamuach the Zer Anpin. Let's stop, think about this. This is the elevator that I talk about. He says that the Yisod has the ability to travel up to the source of the Mochi, of Zer Anpin. And why is that? So he says it's not enough that you say, like, send it COD, and when it gets here, I'll sign for it. No, you got to go up and get it. So he says the Yisod goes up. It's an elevator in the middle. And it goes up, Kedei Laham Shekatipa, in order to bring the Tipa. I guess he means the Chasadim and the Gevuros down. But even so, it didn't pass through that. It never reaches the Dikna of Erich Anpin. Now, what was he talking about? He's talking about the Yisod of Zer Anpin. He says that it's able to move up to the place of the Mochi. Now, normally I would say in the Rosh. So I'm thinking that it really rides to the Yisod of Ima, which is in the Dasa Zer Anpin. But at any rate, he says, Zelo aver la'alos lahasib bedikted to Erich Anpin. It never passes to a place where it could reach or to try to get to reach the beard of Erich Anpin. Not just that. When we said that it moves up to the Mochin, Ella av Zer Anpin Atma, but even Zer Anpin himself on Nikra Adam, who's called Adam. Now we have these two words, Yisod, which means Ish. So it's not the Yisod which goes upwards and it travels up and down. He says it can't make it to the beard of Erich Anpin. Not only that, but Zer Anpin can't make to the beard of Erich Anpin, who is called Adam. Zer Anpin is called Adam. Lo Yashiv Sham Lamala Bedikna de Erich Anpin. It can't dwell over there. Ki Zer Anpin ein lo hasaga Bedikna de Erich Anpin. This is what he wants to say. He says that he has no knowledge really of where Erich Anpin is. And Mavar Adam Levad, and he explains Adam Levarhu, the Adam who he's just said is Zer Anpin Ha'amar B'Pasuk Kan, who's Zer Anpin, ha'omed b'chutz the Erich Anpin, he surrounds Zer Anpin, but he's outside of him. Ki Zer Anpin malvish as Erich Anpin mebechutz, so he covers over him, I think, for the Tiba Lamata. V'gam b'matam his lav shel Zer Anpin, who benetzach hod yisod the Erich Anpin. What part of it does he actually cover? And now he says it covers over the nai of Erich Anpin. That is his legs and his yisod. This area, that in general, because we understand they're all considered to be outside of the body, the Erich Anpin. So he says it's on the outside of the outside. So this man, this Zer Anpin, Shehu Zer Anpin, this is the pasuk says Shelo Yoshev Lahaseg. He's not able to go and dwell, to be able to, meaning to be able to reach or appreciate or know where it is. I threw that idea and know where it is. Lahaseg bedikta de Erich Anpin, to reach the beard of Erich Anpin. Va'amnum Abba ve'ima. So we come and see like this. The Abba ve'ima, Einam omdim bebechutz. They're not outside. That's just a second. Zer Anpin corresponds to the area, of the legs, let's say, so to speak, of Erich Anpin. Abba ve'ima, though, they're not in that same place. They're not considered to be bechutz. Hiyoski heim malvishin lamala min tiba de Erich Anpin. So because they cover Erich Anpin from the tiber upwards. V'od, not only that, shehem malbishim as Abba ve'ima bebifnim, so that inside they're also covering over Abba ve'ima. Now let me see if I got this confused. So I'll read on. I'm a little confused. He says, because Abba ve'ima, I'm going to the top then. He says, ki heim malbishim lamala, they cover over they're up above the tibor of Erich Anpin. V'od shehem malvishim as Abba ve'ima bebifnim. Now, isn't he talking about Abba ve'ima? What's he talking about? That's what got me confused. He said malvishim as Abba, they also cover over inside. Shaharehem nichlala b'sel chadikna de Erich Anpin, so they become like into the beard. They're part of the beard. V'keven shekain, so since that's the case of Abba ve'ima, yesh la'Abba ve'ima rachiza v'chasaga b'dikna de Erich Anpin. Of course, they're holding on, and the first they've reached their Anpin. Erich Anpin, I'm sorry, the beard of Erich Anpin. The Memora Od Adam lo kalo chochol. Ki Adam, this concept of Adam, which is Zer Anpin, he doesn't get. That's not what happens at Zer Anpin. Shehu Zer Anpin atzmo. Non lichlo lahasig kan lamala bedikta de Erich Anpin. It doesn't have any direct relationship with the beard of Erich Anpin. V'im kain, if that's the case, kol shechein ish. So if that's the case, then certainly this concept of a yisod is not going to be a make it either, because it's at the bottom of Zer Anpin. Kol shechein ku hashar yisod is Zer Anpin, the nikra ish, who's also called with the name ish. Lo nichlo lahasgig Zer Anpin ha nikra ish. It doesn't reach that which is called ish. No nichlala. I'm sorry. The haseg bedikna de Erich Anpin, it never reaches it. Ma'ata rabbenim shel pasuk b'derech lo zu av zu, where it says it's calling like this, not this, and also not this. So what does that mean? Lo zu vav lo zu. Kolomer lo zu bilvad shadikna de Erich Anpin lo over ba ish shehu yisod Zer Anpin. It's not just that the yisod will not make it to Erich Anpin, Ella the beard of Erich Anpin, Ella avzu, also this one, that is Zer Anpin. Shelo yashiv adam sham, there's no man, that's Zer Anpin there. The gam Zer Anpin atzmo lo yashiv sham, he doesn't dwell there either. V'amnam kol zecha bedikna de Erich Anpin. All of this is talking about the beard of Erich Anpin. Avah bedikna de Zer Anpin. If we want to talk the beard of Zer Anpin, shafir. So that's a different story. The Zer Anpin, shafir yashiv sham teferes the zer v'nukva hanikra adam. Let me say albal bedikna de Zer Anpin. Let's look at the beard of Zer Anpin. Shafer Yashiv Sham Teferes de Zer Anpin. There, Teferes represents the Vok of Zer Anpin. So if you say that Zer Anpin, in other words, he doesn't have a problem with his Teferes being able to reach his beard. See, he says Sham Teferes de Zer Anpin, V'nukva, who's also that's the Zachar V'nuk of Zer Anpin, Hanikra Adam, Kamoshin Amar, Keteferes Adam. L'shev is ba, like it's a Tiferes, using Tiferes Adam, l'shev is bias, to dwell in the house, which is, I guess, the nukva. Because shechein sha'avar ba yisod zer anpin, and certainly the yisod zer anpin, hanikra ish, which is called ish, shahara yisod oila l'mala adamoach, because it's able to reach that high place. So I guess we'll stop right here, and let me get my other book.